Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Alex, and this is Dota 2. In Dota, I go by the handle Crimson or Crimson Alex, and recently I've been improving my win rate to the point that I think I have some tips I want to share to players that are either in the very low MMR bracket or who are just starting the game and are trying to improve. And these are mistakes I've seen a lot of players make over and over and over and over again, and I think they're a big factor in what throws games. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to dive in here. We're going to cover some very basic things, but I think it's important for those of you who are starting on Dota 2. Now, if you look at the screen here, this is the hero screen, and by my most recent count, there are 119 heroes in Dota 2, and there is a lot of advice on how to approach this game. Should you study one hero? Should you study a multitude of heroes, multitude of roles, things like that? Anyways, we're going to kind of rewind a little bit here, and we're going to just kind of tackle it from a very basic point of view here. And these are rules that are going to apply to about any single hero, but I think it's really worth covering. Okay, so first of all, one of the things I see a lot of people get wrong is essentially in their item selection. Okay, what items they get, when they get them, whether they're rushing something at the wrong time, or too early or too late, things like that. So let me go with an example. One of the most popular heroes right now is Phantom Assassin. Now, when you play the game, when you have your first couple or even 100 or 200 matches with Dota, you're going to see these recommended guides that come up, and I highly encourage you to follow these guides until you get to the point where you have several, even 100 or even a couple thousand games under your belt, and it will take that many. I would not deviate too much from what these guys suggest, and there's two main ones. There's the standard rivalry.com build, yeah, and the Immortal Faith build. And it's a matter of preference between these two. Some are more popular, some are not. I usually tend to go with Immortal Faith. I think he's quite good, but Standard Rivalry also very good. But the key thing I want to point out is this: when you take a hero, select one of these two guides. Okay, I know you're going to try and think, okay, there's so many items. I know I can do better with this item at this time. But one of the things that really improved my win rates early on was when I finally started to follow these guides to the letter. And one of the reasons is that these guides are tailored in such a way that they accentuate or they enhance the inherent strength of your hero that you're using. Okay, while if you try to mix and match with a whole bunch of items that you may not be familiar with, you can very easily gimp your hero to the point that you will lose the match single-handedly. A hero that is, I don't want to say feeding, but the result is kind of like feeding, where they're completely ineffective, they have the wrong items, and they are not able to leverage the strength of their hero correctly. It will have the same effect as feeding, even if that is not your intention. Okay, and a lot of people call out people doing that as feeding. Okay, so anyways, we have Phantom Assassin here, and look at this. This gives you everything. Okay, now I've always had Dota Plus. Okay, and I'm going to go into that in a little bit here, but I think these are available to everybody. Okay, so you can see starting off here, you have a whole bunch of items. Okay, you have regen, you have a quelling blade, you have some branches. And then some of the early game stuff, you follow in this order, left to right. Okay, you get a stick, and then you get some wraith bands, and then you finally get boots of speed. Kind of go from left to right. Okay, and these will give you the items that will really accentuate your character. So, for example, Phantom Assassin is kind of a pure DPS character. She's a little bit of a glass cannon. She is not as easy, I think, as some people think. She is relatively straightforward. I think that's what people think, that she's a little bit easier, but that doesn't mean applying her is easy. Okay, there takes some discretion. But that being said, though, these items, particularly the Wraith Pans, really empower your character, in this case, Phantom Assassin, with more agility, some strength and intelligence, which she needs, to help give her a little bit of hit points and also some mana points. She's not a very mana intensive character, but these things will help. Okay, but more importantly, she also get +5 attack speed all in one item, and that's why I see a lot of pros at the high level early on. They'll get 2 Wraith Bands, sometimes 3. Yeah, because it really powers up your character in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the match. Okay, and what a lot of new players do is they completely skip over this and they instead go straight for the Desolator or something. They get brown boots and then they start going for the very high items. Don't do that. Okay, get these low tier items. I am now convinced that most matches are won not with the high tier items, like such as like a Desolator or Abyssal Blade or things like that. They look shiny, okay, but what wins matches are these things in the mid and early game. Wraith Bands, magic sticks, brown boots, you name it. Extra regen if you need extra regen. Maybe a soul ring if you are playing like a strength hero that needs some extra mana, like a Dragon Knight. Okay, if you try to skip over this, your character is going to be very, very weak at a stage of the game where kills are going to start to happen and things are going to start to snowball. Okay, so tip number 1: follow these guides until you really know the game forwards and backwards. Okay, and that is going to be a long time, longer than you think. If you go with this, in general, you're going to have a fairly effective character, at least from the point of view of the items that you select. Okay. Next up, choosing your hero. All right. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought on how to choose the correct hero when you start out in Dota. No one knows every single hero perfectly. Okay, there's just simply too many, and the game is too complex. Okay, it's kind of like a fighting game. For those of you from the fighting game community, you essentially have 2 or 3 main characters, maybe one you're really well known with, maybe you have a pocket character that you select to kind of bring out. Same thing kind of applies in Dota 2. Dota 2 is kind of like a chess match and a fighting game at the same time, which really makes it exciting, as well as elements of RPGs thrown in. Okay, what I would recommend is that you actually take a look at the Play Dota button here, and you'll see that there's a new option now called Ranked Roles. Okay, and these roles are things you're going to be able to assign yourself. Okay, yes, my rank is pretty terrible. It's Herald, but trust me, it was worse than this, and now it's actually starting to climb up fairly quickly. Okay, but that being said, though, focus around a role that you want to be with, and the first one is between support and core, and they are both vital. A lot of people have this perception that in order to carry games and win MMR and climb up, you got to be a carry. That's not the case. Okay, you can be very effective as a support. Okay, but there are 2 different schools of thought. That's why they're split up a little bit. Carries are more tactical. Okay, to split it down very succinctly, carries are very tactical characters, which means they're focused on farming, on the immediate situation, on team fights, and trying to get the character to a certain power level that they can push team fights in their team's favor, and by doing that, push through into the base and win the game. Supports, however, are more strategic. Okay, they are not there to be the servants and wait, hat in hand to the carries. That's not their job, and that's not their function. In fact, after probably the first 10 minutes of the match, the supports are going to go away. Okay, and they got their own jobs they need to do. They are the most strategic ones in the game. If you look here, you'll see these filters. The support here is by default these characters. Now, a lot of other characters can fill the role of a support. And they've been kind of meta shifting back and forth. There used to be a Nyx assassin support. I think there was even a Luna support at one time. Okay, but in general, supports are heroes that can utilize their abilities that are not inherently reliant on gold. Okay, now the more items you give them, the more powerful it will definitely become. But their viewpoint should be that of being more utilitarian and i.e. more strategic than that of a carry. The carry there is really focused on just cranking out DPS, killing their targets, staying alive, and perhaps pushing into the base. So if you look at the carry here, you'll see almost all of them are in the agility range. Okay, several in strength, several in intelligence as well. But they're there to really lay out the damage, and that's exciting for a lot of people. But it takes a different mindset, as I mentioned before. Okay, so going back to supports, they're the ones that will get the wards. They're the ones that can get smokes and dust and things like that. But the other key thing about support characters is that they also need to get utilitarian items such as Glimmercades, Force Staff. Maybe they need to get a rod of Atos to lock someone down. That's become one of my favorite items recently. That I've really noticed starting to swing games. And the reason I call them more strategic is because of the vision aspect. They're the ones that have to not just de-ward their side of the base, they have to be looking at the minimap and seeing where they can ward inside the enemy side of the map. Okay, and getting vision is what leads to team fights. It's what leads to successful ganks. It what leads to your own heroes saving themselves when they see the enemy approaching if they're paying attention to the minimap. Vision is what wins games. Period. Okay, without vision, you are blind and you're going to be ganked every single time. And unless you have one of those cases where a team fight, you just happen to win it and you're able to storm in the enemy base and just win it right there. It does happen, but that's not how it usually happens. Okay, so a carry is much more tactical, and a support is much more strategic. That's why a lot of team captains, if you look at the pro level, they're in position 4 or 5. They are actually supports because that gives them the room to be more strategic in their thinking rather than laser focused. Sorry about that. Laser focused on hitting item timings, getting the right farm, being at the right team fights or not, things like that. Okay. Carries, I just mentioned, they're the ones that either initiate fights or should initiate fights. They're the ones that can crank up a lot of kills and swing it into your team's favor, or they're able to give some tactical advantage that will stun the entire enemy team, for example, and win the game. Okay. They also have impressive farming capabilities where they can get key items, but they are inherently dependent on those items. A lot of them have skills where in and of themselves are not that useful, but when they start to get a lot of items, they become extremely powerful, particularly in damage. A lot of people like to play carries because they get high damage scores, they get high kills, they kind of have a shooter mentality where, okay, the number of kills you get is how good you are. That's really not true in Dota, okay, but that mentality kind of comes along with it. But being a carry sometimes, one of the hardest things about being a carry is actually learning to be more defensive than what one is maybe used to. Okay, carry is thinking very offensively, but realize that if a carry dies in the match, that's a big deal. As a support, when I play support, a lot of times if I can take a carry down and I go down, that's a win. Okay, it's much more important to take down a carry than it is to take down a support sometimes, because the carry is just that much more reliant on gold. They lose the gold, they lose the time farming when they're down. Support doesn't matter that much. They'll trade their lives for that, no problem. Okay, so going back to the original point is know the role that you're going to be going into. Okay, I've seen supports thinking they were carries. I've seen carries that have no idea what they're doing. Things like that. Ranked roles has been a real boon to the game, and I think people are able to slot themselves where they need to be and tailor their experience and their study and their knowledge in order to be the most effective in the role that they have or the role that they've chosen. Okay, so that's point number 2. Know your role. So point number 1, utilize the guys that are available for the heroes. They're there and they're very good. Number 2, know the role and know the job and the function that you're going to be in. And there's a slight overview there. Okay, number 3, something I've seen a lot, and we're just going to dive in here. And we're going to practice with bots. We're actually going to get into the map itself. Okay, so we've looked at the heroes, we've looked at the jobs. We're just going to grab one real quick. I'm going to take Vengeful Spirit. She's one of my favorites. You know, just one of those go-to picks that works really, really well. And I'll just take where the recommended items are. Again, using a guide, there's a core here. I'll actually take Standard Rivalry. And that is more or less pretty much the same. Okay. And we'll take a look here. Make sure you get good regen. Alright. Don't come out without any tangos. Alright. Or ways to keep up your energy. Know the needs of your hero. Okay. If you need lots of mana, okay, bring mangoes and clarities. Okay. If you know you're going to be taking a lot of right click hits, or a lot of creep aggro, bring an extra set of tangos. Okay. Okay, so we're going to pause it here just for the moment. These are all bots. They won't mind. And it's a very important point here. Okay, so first of all, having a guide up, they also tell you which skills to get in which order. Now these, I'm not going to be as strict as with the items. I think as you become more experienced with the hero that you have, you can adjust this order. But more or less, when you're starting out, it's a good way to pick your initial skills, because typically they're written in such a way that they focus on the skills that ramp up in power very quickly rather than those that don't ramp up at all. So you get the kind of the best bang for your buck, so to speak, with the early skill points that you're going to get. Okay, so here again it's laid out, which is starting off with, and then you go through the early game here and you see what you need. A lot of times they'll have situational items, and they'll have also extension items. Situational is when you can really pick out the situation and see what you need. For example, if you're fighting Sniper here, it may be a good idea to get a Heaven's Halberd. Heaven's Halberd is very effective against Sniper, Drow, and Huskar, all very popular in the meta right now, particularly low MMR. This item can disable them for a good 5 seconds and render them completely helpless. A good way to get on top of them to gank them, or at least shut them down when there's a team fight going on, allowing your team 5 seconds to concentrate on the enemy team before dealing with them if they need to. Another one, Aether Lens. Extending the range that you can throw out your magic missile, and also your swap, very important for Vengeful Spirit, which is right down here, and of course Wave of Terror, which is always nice. It has a long range already, but sometimes you can throw out Wave of Terror and stop someone's clarity even when they're way in the back and they think that they're safe. Okay, so this right here is usually very good to see. Okay, you want to get the early game, get the core items, situational, great utility items. These things you should be buying as a support. Wards, dust, smoke, maybe a gem. You'll have to check your survivability. Vengeful Spirit, not the best survivability. So I'm kind of questioning why this is here, but this would be a better items on, say, Chaos Knight that will have a better chance of surviving, or maybe a Luna if they're skilled enough in escape and using her fast movement speed to their advantage. Okay, extension items. Okay, so extension items are items that if you're having a really good game, or again lots of farm, and you got a few of your key items, these are things that can really help your character. Okay, some of these I would even think is core right now, like such as Glimmergape and Forest Staff. Those I almost think is as key or as required by almost any support position. You will not go wrong with having a Glimmer Cape and a Force Staff. That saves teammates. It will save yourself. It's quite important, I think. But in this case, they have it down in extension items. So which means it may not be a direct focus for your hero, but it could be something that can bring a lot of utility to the field and save a core, maybe swing a fight, and save yourself. Some of these items, I would say, you can kind of think they're position 5 items. They're the hard support items, okay? And that would be true. If I'm playing a position 4, which is a normal support, there's a little difference here. Okay, so going back to support, position 4 and position 5. Position 4 is going to do some supporting, okay? But they're also going to bring their magical utility power into the team fight. While hard support is really going to be focused on these utility items, using their abilities, maybe without too much ramp up. For example, if I'm playing position 5 as Vengeful Spirit here, okay, I will use the money I have to get a large amount of Sentry Wars, to get the dust, get the smoke, get things like that. And if I need to give up farm, like I have some greedy cores here, let's say, okay, Luna and Chaos Knight, for example, especially Luna, she can be a complete vacuum cleaner and take up all the farm. And I find myself okay, just keep the wards coming, keep your eye on the map here and seeing where I need to ward. Okay, moving on.
Very well.
Let's do just that. Let's see, can I grab a ward? Yes, okay, there's one ward there. And here we go. So we're going to go out here. Again, just for demonstrative purposes, we'll be doing a few things. Okay. Now, of course, if you're hard support, you will be usually up in the safe lane, supporting your safe carry. And your job is to make sure he gets the farm that he needs and that he is protected to the extent that he won't die. And also, more importantly, setting up things like kills and making sure he gets the adequate farm to really ramp up and meet his item timings, which should be his primary focus. Okay. Mid lane here is kind of a unique position. They're solo. They tend to get the most farm and the most experience, but there are some special considerations that need to be made. And again, these are all AI robots here. We'll see what happens. Let's see if we can deal with this guy here. You can tell it's an AI. They even grab the room. Anyways, going back to the mid position, they're the ones that tend to ramp up very, very well and very, very quickly with levels. Not so much to strictly farm, but especially with levels. Luna mid, not terribly unusual. It can actually work if they don't get too much harassment. This would actually be a decent setup here, because Luna has the base movement speed to get out of the blood right once he casts it. Yep. So this would actually be decent. Okay, so another thing for supports, particularly with vision, is to be able to put wards offensively at some point. You can't just keep eyes on your own force and stuff, although it's very important to prevent gigs. But also, you want to be able to ward inside the enemy base. And if you're good, you can ninja inside the base and do what I just did and actually grab their outposts right from the get-go if you're very good, because they're not going to be paying attention to you. Second thing is, as I mentioned, offensive warding. You can put a ward right here and keep tabs on the enemy and see when they're doing the rotations, when they start jungling, and you can drop on them and get a good clean kill. And sometimes it can be a key core, and those kills are huge. A couple of other things I haven't mentioned for support is maybe you need to do a creep wave pull. Maybe you need to cut a creep wave, things like that. All very important skills. Maybe not things you're going to normally see in the Herald level, but definitely things you will practice on as you go higher and higher. Yep. Also, they also tend to be the ones to come out and get the runes when it's rune time or when the runes fall. And they also keep an eye on the clock. So life as a support can be actually a fairly busy life. Life as a core, they're going to be all focused on this. They're going to be focused on getting last hits. They're going to be focused on staying alive. They're going to be focused on getting good fights. Yep. And they're going to drop on that. And to get the kills they need. But most importantly for the carries is getting the items and the gold, and particularly the last hits. And as a support, I wouldn't be doing this. I would not be taking last hits. That is something for the carry in your lane to be doing. But one thing the support will also be doing is initiating if they see a good kill, like I did with Sniper up here. And there you go. I've never such an evil laugh in my life. So, as you can probably tell, I play support a bit, and I also play carry quite a bit. Okay, so I'm going to ditch my lane here. I'm going to just come up here a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about the map. So the point I was making there is, there's a lot of things that each position should be doing, but you should also be keeping it clear on the map. This mini map here is one of the things that players always need to work on, is keeping an eye on this. This is your strategic view of what is going on in the game. Yeah, if there's a team fight going down, whether you should be there or not is up to you. Okay. So point number 4 coming up here. So let's just reiterate again. So point number 1, use the guides. Point number 2, know the role and job that you'll be taking. Point number 3, utilize the map and do things that are particular to your role, like offensive warding or keeping a tactical focus if you're a carry. So point number 4 here is going to be this. This is going to be a little bit of a scenario. I'm going to discuss it here. And that is, if you're losing, and this perimeter of this map comes in more and more towards your base, one of the things to realize is a lot of times they'll be storming the gates of the base. They'll be hitting your tier 3 towers. They'll be hitting your racks, and you're going to be the only one left alive, and the rest of the team is on cooldown. Okay. A team fight went bad. You happen to be the lone survivor, or someone else is the lone survivor. Okay. Don't come charging out of the base here and come up here and try and save the day. Okay. I have seen people just throw their lives away and lose the game by trying to do some pro hero move here, while the rest of the team is still down. It is better to lose a tower, a set of racks, sometimes even 2 racks, just so your entire team comes out at once and they all come out swinging. That is the best opportunity you have to turn that fight around, regain initiative of the game, get some more map control, and possibly turn the game around. It has happened, and it has happened on a more consistent base than you think. But what has been extremely consistent is if someone comes out here, tries to do a pro move by themselves, get themselves killed, and the rest of the team spawns, but now it's 4v5 because now you're dead, and they're up and going, you're going to lose the game because you threw your life away, and your team, when they did come up, is now at an inherent disadvantage, and it's kind of all over, okay? You have to be able to be patient and be willing to lose a tower or even a set of racks to get your team up on your feet, because that is the best time that you're going to be able to make a real counterattack. Sometimes it doesn't work, all right? Sometimes the enemy team is just so bloody fed, but either way, you still have a better chance of winning by coming out together than coming out one at a time. Yeah. So normally this Chaos Knight wouldn't hopefully be so bloody stupid as to turn around and re-engage even if I'm there. So point number 5, the last point, learning to play defensive Dota. And this is something that gets a lot of hate, you know? But sometimes it's better not to show up at a team fight when you know with 100% the only thing you're going to be doing is you're going to die. Okay. It is better to lose one or two teammates to a gank than to feed in yourself and your team one at a time trying to save a bad situation. Okay. Sometimes they just need to let them go. Sometimes they need to let you go. If you get ganked, all right, just don't save me. Let me die. That's especially true for supports.
Invisibility.
A lot of team fights, when they go wrong, there's a wrong initiation, and people come in piecemeal trying to save a bad situation when really they just die one at a time. Okay? Sometimes you have to be defensive. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Sometimes if there's a bad teammate up here and I'm down here, I'll keep pushing in a wave, you know, get farmed. The only thing that's going to happen is that you're going to get stronger, or your team is going to get stronger, rather than you dying, throwing your life away, and giving the enemy team golden experience that will strengthen them. Okay, so this is something especially for carries that they need to be focused on. Carries like to be the hero. Okay, they see your Sumails of the world, your Arteezes, they see them pulling off pro moves to win the game single-handedly. Folks, you're not at that level. If you're at that level, you'd be a TI. Okay, doesn't mean you can't get at that level. And if you get off on the right foot here and you really win the game, you can get to that level. Okay, but one thing you don't see Sumail and Arteezy do is throwing their lives away. Okay, they will let their team die if they know that they have nothing that they're going to be able to contribute or swing the game. They have the judgment and the experience to know when they can turn a fight, and more importantly, when they cannot. Okay? So knowing when you can turn a fight and you need to be there, or when you cannot turn a fight and it's better to save yourself, that is one of the key skills of Dota. So that is tip number 5. So, alright folks, those are my 5 starting tips if you're a brand new player to Dota 2 or you're in the low ranks and you're trying to get out. These are things I'm beginning to notice that separates good players from bad players. Okay, and there's a lot more. There's a lot more in team coordination. There's a lot more in player conduct. There's a lot more in how you start up with the game. But just starting off with, don't try and take shortcuts. Okay, you really need to learn the game. The guides are there to get you a good start, and I wouldn't deviate from them until you really know what you're doing. Okay? Anyways, folks, I'm going to leave it here. This is my Dota 2 5 tips advice for new players. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it helps you out. And good luck with your matches. And I wish you the best. And I'll see you at TI. Take care, everyone. And I will talk to you soon.